Hi, my name is Corey Sharp, and I work in the Office of Strategic Marketing and Branding. And I help the university at large, as well as individual units, buy and manage advertising. And today I'm going to discuss a tool that I use pretty much every day, either that or I'm at least getting the information from this tool every day, and that's Google Tag Manager. And I want to talk about this because it's something that I find immensely useful. But the more I work with units around campus, a lot of people aren't using this tool, or they aren't using it to its fullest extent to get as much information from it as possible. The long and short is Google Tag Manager is a tool that you can use to track specific events and actions on your website. Some of you may remember or may still use kind of custom JavaScript commands to track these types of events. This tool allows you to do all of that without ever involving your developer, that you don't need a developer to put these different JavaScript commands in. The marketing team and the communications team can do this on their own. And so it saves a ton of time, saves a ton of energy, allows your developer to use their energy towards things that might be more needing of their skills than this. So it's a great tool that I use. And if you aren't tracking events on your website, you're really missing out on a lot of information, because just visitors and story reads and those types of things aren't all that helpful. Like, let's just be really honest for a minute. If more people come to our website, but if they just come to our website, what does that even mean? What good thing has happened? What good thing have they even done? If more people read a story, what have we accomplished other than more people reading the story? So this type of tracking helps to bring some quantified measurables to that activity. And it helps you to set real goals for the types of things people can do. Do you have a requested more info form? How many people are filling out that form? Are you able to track that? Where are those people filling out that form coming from? Do you know if you're paying for advertising, how are you tracking conversions? What is a conversion for you when you're advertising? So this is a tool that helps you do all of that super easily. And even, if you've worked with an agency, have you had to put pixels on your website? This allows you to put pixels on your website without having your developer figure out how to get it wrapped around the certain form you're looking for. This is something that you can do all of that type of measurement stuff with in a user interface without bothering your developer. So I'm going to look at my screen here so that way we can open up and show you Google Tag Manager. So this is Tag Manager, and it is based off of two things called tags and triggers. So tags are the naming convention for the activity that you are tracking. That's funny. So they're the naming convention for the activity that you're tracking. It allows you to put it into a category. We'll look here at one just so we know what it is. So it allows you to put it into a category. So that way, if you have a lot of different activities under one umbrella, you can put it into a category. Action, so it could be click, submission, watch, those types of things. This for me is often less important. I use category and label, a lot more helpful. Action, I just kind of guessed, to be honest. Label, so this is the apply button. It's under the admissions category, but it's the apply button on this particular website, and its value. So how many points or dollars or whatever should this thing be worth? Here it's 1 because we're just counting how many times it happened. We don't have a dollar value or anything associated with this action. So that's the tag. It's a naming convention. And then you have a trigger. A trigger is the activity that makes that happen. So how do we find the right variables to isolate that activity to define it as an action? So we're trying to track how many times a certain button that says apply on it is clicked. So here, and we'll get into this when I show an example, it fires when a button whose click text, or its A tag, if you know a little bit about code, is apply. And I will say case does matter. So whatever Google reads the case as does matter. So it's the text equals apply. So it's logic. How do we use the logic of the machine to isolate that activity on the page? So that is the basics of how it works. There's also variables. For the most part, they're in here. Just figure out which ones you need to turn on to do what you need to do. But that can be saved for another time. So this is added to your website very much like Google Analytics, in that you just copy and paste this code like it says in the head as high on the page, and then this code in the body on every page. It's very easy. It's a copy and paste. It completely replaces your Google Analytics tag. Take that off of your website and replace it with this, because now that Google Analytics is collected through Tag Manager. You don't need that code anymore. So how do you implement Google Analytics on your page using Tag Manager if it's deleted now? So just like everything else, it's a tag and a trigger. So I have a Google Analytics tag on here, right here, Google Analytics. How did I get that? I just tag type. The tag type here, it's not an event, or it's not Google Ads Tracking. It's just Google Analytics, Universal Analytics. So I select that. The type that it is a page view, because I want it to fire every time people just see a page. I don't care if they do anything. Google Analytics needs to track as soon as the page is loaded. So it's a page view. And then Google Analytics settings. I had to create a variable here. So that's for power, because this is for the Power BI website. So it's POIGA. But if I needed to create it, I use the tracking ID. So the tracking ID can be found in your Google Analytics. When you go down, it is this UA number. So you copy and paste or copy down this UA number here, and you put it into here, give your variable a name, and then that's how you add your Google Analytics. You will still read all of your information in your Google Analytics. You will still read everything there, but Google Tag Manager helps to set up some variables to properly interpret that information into activity on the page. So that is the basics of how it works, a flyover, how you set up GA. Let's do some kind of basic tags, okay? So let's say I want to track this apply button we were looking at earlier, right? So the first thing I want to do is I want to know what variables Google calls it, because I could go to view developer, view source, and I could look at the source code and I could figure out, hey, what's the A tag, what's the text here, what's the form ID, all of that. But two things with that: not all of us know how to read through that information or find it enjoyable or easy. The other thing is, everything I see here isn't always necessarily what Google Tag Manager sees it as. Like, I might see this code saying one thing, but they interpret it differently. I don't know why, it just happens. So what I do is I go back into Google Tag Manager and I click preview. I go into preview mode. So when I'm in preview mode, this orange box appears. I just hit refresh because I'm always in preview mode. And I'm going to refresh my page. Google Tag Manager puts this box up on the page for me. This is the tags that have already fired. And if you need the box to go away, you can just click this caret if you're working on your website otherwise. But these are the tags that have already fired here. That my Google Analytics tag fired when the page loaded, and this retargeting pixel from my ad campaign has loaded when the page loaded. These are the tags that are on the page, but have not necessarily fired. So let's say I want to track this apply button. I will command click, so that way it opens in a separate tab, because I don't want to lose the page. So I'll command click, and you'll see that the apply button has fired. So I will click here on this link click, and then I'm going to go to variables, and it's going to tell me the different variables that apply to that action. So I don't need to guess what the text ID is from the click text is. It's going to show me right here that the click text is apply. If I wanted to do it based off of URL, I got this here. Sometimes if there is an HTML ID wrapped around that specific button, it will tell me that, and I can do that. Sometimes if there's a CSS class wrapped around that button, it'll show me what that class is. But here it didn't read the class. It read the click text. Okay, you can also see what web page it was on. That can be helpful for later. But yeah, we got our variable here. So this one, apply, click text equals apply, is good enough for me because when I look on the page, there are no buttons on this page or on this other buttons on this website that use only the word apply. So I know that if I use the click text apply, it'll only fire when that button is clicked. So we'll go here to apply click, like I showed you earlier, and I gave it a tag and a naming convention here of, so we'll start from a little bit earlier. So it's Google Analytics, Universal Analytics for almost everything. I click that. What type of tracking do I want? This is an event here. I'm trying to track it as an event. So that way later I can make it a conversion if I wanted to. And then I give it a category, a click, a label, a value. I always make sure to go in our analytics settings and make sure it's going into that our Google Analytics for the data to be collected. And then I move on to the trigger. So typically, if there's a trigger, you can either add one you've already made, but in most cases that won't work because you made a specific tag for a specific button. So you go to add new, you give it a title, so that way you know where it is later, and then all elements. I always do all elements, even if it's a link, because again, I'd rather, it just might not think of it as just a link. I just would rather be safe. It's a lot safer to use all elements. Some clicks, and then I start defining which clicks that I want. So here we knew that the click text, and we knew that it equals all caps apply. Not now. All caps apply. And we knew it did that. And then you would save that, and I'm not going to because I already have it. And then that trigger for apply click here, click text equals apply, is now associated with this tag. So that way, whenever this action happens, a button is clicked with the click text equaling apply, it's going to fire this tag and you'll track it in your Google Analytics. Now, I will go over here. You have to submit. Every change you make is not live until you go to submit and then you publish it. If you add all the tags and triggers you want, but you haven't submitted and published it, it will not go live. Then immediately I will go to the Power of I website and I'll refresh. I'll first go here and I'm going to refresh my preview because I just made a change. Then I'm going to refresh the page. And now my change should be reflected. And I'm going to command click this time, and I'm going to test it to make sure, yep, apply click has fired.